Are you all ready? Okay. So you've already seen the video about us and what we achieved and what the children were doing in term 1. I know you all joined this school because you heard about the way that we deliver the curriculum and about how much the children love being in this school and love learning. So thank you very much for continuing to trust us and making your experience and your children's experience the way it is today for us. When you come in reception, you will see both sides that we have our vision and mission written on the walls of our reception. And this is really important to us because our vision and mission is at the core of everything that we do. These are not words we just made up. We thought very carefully about what we wanted this school to be. And so if you look at the vision, our community is a place where all children and staff love learning because they in turn are loved, cared for, and celebrated for their individuality. Our students are fully engaged in exciting hands-on activities in a context that brings the learning to life. And our stakeholders contribute positively and endlessly towards ensuring our school is second to none. And we live to that vision in this school. Our mission, as a British curriculum school, we embrace up-to-date pedagogical advances, which is another way for saying the science of how children learn, which are facilitated by our highly trained and valued teachers. Our students' deep-rooted achievement is due to our personalised learning approach, which is purposefully planned and thoughtfully delivered. This is what we're trying to achieve. If at any point you as our community feel that we are not moving towards this vision and mission, you must tell us, because this is what we live by every day at the school here. The most important thing I want to just focus on is that we do up-to-date pedagogical advances. This means we take the latest research in how children learn and we apply it in our classrooms. This is not what we do. This might be something you might be more familiar with. When I went to school, it wasn't quite that long ago, but you get the idea. You sat behind a desk, you did what you were told, you copied from the board, and you just never said a thing. This is not how children learn best, okay? So there's been lots of research, and the beautiful thing about the British curriculum is that it is a skills-based curriculum, which means they don't sit and listen. They engage, they participate, and they do lots of things within the classroom. You will know that your children love learning. Love it. Not like when we were like this and just, this is something we have to get through. If we want to be successful in life, we just have to get through this education and do as well as we can in our exams. Okay? Here, the children love learning. And I know that because I know they love their teachers. And I know because I've seen them running to school every morning. Because they really enjoy being here with their friends, with their teachers, and with everybody in the school because they feel loved and cared for and safe. But like I said, also because the way we teach them is skills-based. And it comes back to the constant conversations that I'm having with parents about textbooks. Okay? That's not the best pedagogy of how children learn, sitting with a textbook and going through the pages. It's not. And we need to try and leave that idea behind. Okay? This idea of PowerPoints and just teachers talking at children, it's not good learning. And what I'm doing with you today is not good learning. Okay? I should really be getting you to do things and talk to each other and speak, but we don't have the time quite to do that today. But I'm not modelling what we do in the classroom. Okay? I need to make that really clear. What we do in the classroom is you would all be excited with your hands up, engaged, and, learning contextually with the real world. Also, the children are engaged in their learning. If you go into the classroom, and I've seen it a lot, all of the children want to participate in their learning. They enjoy it, and they want to contribute, and it's wonderful to see. But the question remains, if we're not constantly examining our children, how do we know how well they're doing? Because I know we're all used to, again, having an exam, revising for an exam, memorizing everything, taking the exam, writing everything down quickly before you forget it, and then the next day you forget everything. That's not assessing if you've learned it, that's assessing if you've memorized it. Okay? And so we need to think of a different way of assessing how the children are doing. And we need to make sure we know where the children are all the way through the year, not just when they take exams. We need to know, if we're teaching fractions today, did the children understand fractions today? Not when they take their exam at the end of the term. It's too late then. We need to constantly be assessing how children are growing, each and every one of them. And they will all grow at different rates, and they're all good at different things. And celebrate it. Some of them are wonderful at gymnastics. Some of them are wonderful at piano playing. Some of them are wonderful at baking. Some of them are wonderful at getting out of bed every morning and winning platinum award certificates. And we need to celebrate what each individual is wonderful at, as well as helping them to become better at things that they struggle with. But every child is different, and we cannot compare them. They will grow from little seedlings into beautiful plants, with many parts of them, each one of those leaves becoming something more beautiful as they grow. We've got to be able to measure how much they're growing. So I want to start with, if you've ever read the leadership book Simon Sinek, Start With Why, but it's a really good read. Whenever you decide to do anything in life, don't start with the how or the what, start with why are you doing it. So, why are we assessing children's progress in their learning? The first and most important reason is the children need to know how well they're doing. They need to know. Because then they can address any issues, any concerns, anything that they're struggling with, they can do something about it. It's the most important person to know. The teacher needs to know how well the children are doing. They need to know how well they're doing in every subject that they teach, so that if the child needs additional help, they can find out and help them in those individual areas. This is why we don't teach straight from textbooks, because when a teacher plans a lesson, they have to think about where each child is in their learning journey and plan for that. They don't just assume that everybody, because they've done this before, knows it and we can move on. So every time they plan, they know where everybody is in their learning and plan a special lesson to make sure everybody feels involved in their learning. You need to know, I know you're very interested in where your children are in their learning, very important that we let you know where they are. So as parents, we need to make sure we're telling you where your child is. Senior leadership team, we need to know how the school's doing. So we'll summarise all of the information and find out which children are doing well, which classes are doing well, which year groups are doing well. Are boys doing better than girls? All of those things. So we need to know how well the children are doing as the senior leadership team. And finally, when we're inspected, which is coming up soon. Okay? So we as a school are going to be inspected. I'm very excited. It will happen somewhere between the 29th of January and the 8th of March. But they're coming in to check what we're doing, because we're in our 3rd year of operation. Okay? And they will look at all of the data. They'll see how well the children are doing. So this is why we have to assess how well the children are learning, what they're learning, what they know, what they need to work on. But everything we do in this school is for the children. Everything. As much as we love you, parents, and we do, everything we do is for your children, not for you. But eventually, that will help you too. Okay? So why? Moving on, why do we do it? So we can celebrate when children do really well. It's not just about finding out what they can't do, it's also celebrating what they can do. And we do a lot of celebrations in this school. But we also do it in order to make sure we find any gaps in learning. Because I know when you've come, especially from another school, you want to know if the children know everything that they should know by this time. So we're constantly assessing every lesson to see if the children have any gaps in their learning, and then we plan the lesson to make sure we cover that. We do not do it to compare your child with another child. It's not how it does it. I know in some other curriculum they'll tell you your child's number 1 in the class, your child's number 2 in the class. It's not good for the children to be compared against each other for all these reasons. Okay? It's actually what's called the thief of joy. If you're constantly comparing yourself against other people, you're never going to be happy with yourself. Because there's always going to be someone taller, smarter, more intelligent, better at football. Always. And so therefore, please don't get yourselves into a situation where you compare your children with other children. We assess children based on where they should be for their age. It's called age-related expectations. So we know for a 5-year-old, this is where they should be. And we compare them against that, not against each other. Okay? Please don't do it. It's really bad for the children's mental health. So the next question. We now know why we assess. How do we do it? Well, there's 2 different ways you can assess. You have formative, ongoing assessment, which is what you do every single day in the classroom. You're looking at how well the children are doing in every lesson. You're getting them to assess themselves, each other, all in the classroom. And then it goes on to summative assessment, where summative assessment is where you do an exam. It's the final thing, it's done, there's nothing you can do about it. You take your exam, finished. That's called summative. Okay? So there's different kinds of assessment. Assessment that goes on throughout the term, and then you have your end of term exam. Let's check what you've learned over the whole term. Okay? If you look at the benefits and the differences, formative assessment actually happens while they're learning in the classroom. The teachers are constantly checking the understanding and checking the learning in every lesson that happens and recording it. It allows teachers and students to change their strategies. If they're going in the wrong direction, the teacher will say, go this way instead, and they can do it straight away. You don't wait till they do an exam. You can identify straight away what they need to do to improve, and also it gives opportunities for the students when we give them feedback. Here you are, you need to add an additional noun into that sentence. They can do it straight away. They can improve their work on a daily basis. Assessment, summative assessment, occurs at the end. We've done a unit on environment and animal habitats, and we're going to test you at the end, and we're going to find out what you've remembered and what you haven't. It provides the final evaluation. And also, it usually starts ranking children. You got 98%, I got 76%, you got 34%. So that's the difference between the different kinds of assessment. Again, when we were at school, this is how we were assessed. Just kept getting exams, you either got it right or wrong. They didn't go back and check it and do it again because you didn't understand it the first time. So everybody, post 15 years ago in education, we're all being assessed just by examination, not what was happening in the classroom every day. And I think I've explained it well enough for you to see that doing this is going to help the children make better progress, because they're being told straight away which bits they need to improve on. So, we use formative assessment to improve student outcomes in the classroom at the time. And we do that by watching the children, what they're doing in the lesson. And a lot of this observational assessment is done with the younger children. So we do a lot of watching what they're doing, taking photos, and uploading them onto learning ladders so that we've got evidence of the children actually making progress and what they can do. The other way we can check is by looking in their notebooks. So you will notice that this term, there's a slightly different way that we're marking books than before. We are making sure that we mark what we're expecting them to be able to do. So for example, if we're asking children to be able to describe different animal habitats, we will only mark that work. We will only mark how well they are doing at describing different animal habitats. We won't mark necessarily their huge spelling mistakes. We won't mark whether or not always their handwriting's perfect. We're marking what we asked them to do. So we set them and we send to you, in the weekly Parents Focus letter, we send to you what we're teaching them that week, and that's what we assess them on. And in the books you will see that the teacher is writing a star, what you've done well, towards that learning, and next steps, what you can do next to improve that learning about animal environments. Then, the children are going to take a different colour pen and will actually change their work based on what the teacher has told them to do to improve. So you can see in the books that the teacher is giving them actual feedback how to do better at the time that they do the work, not when they do an exam. And the children will straight away improve their work based on what the teacher has said. Now this is the latest updates with regards to how to give feedback to children so they improve and make real fast progress. So you'll see that in the notebooks that are coming home. This conversation that's happening with the children in the notebooks about how they can make their work better. That's the formative assessment that works really well. We are also going to encourage children to assess themselves. So we'll say, here is a good piece of work. We call it a waggle. If you've heard any children talk about waggle, it's what a good one looks like, waggle. Yes. We show them what a good one looks like, and then they mark their work according to the waggle. So they make ideas and suggestions on how they can improve their own work. And also, we like students to assess each other, because they learn more from looking at each other's work as well, and seeing what's gone well in somebody else's work. So all of these methods of assessing how they're doing are all used, and they're all formative. So that's how we assess every day, okay? You will also be aware that with year 6, 7 and 8, we started doing those final summative exams at the end of each term. And this is because they need to get prepared for their IGCSEs, which is a final examination. So I can't hide from it, we've got to do it. But I'm just showing you how much better it is to give feedback every day and assess children every day. So what are we assessing? We're assessing the National Curriculum Standards. If you Google the National Curriculum for England and read it, it's great reading, but it will tell you all of the curriculum standards that need to be taught for each year group. So for example, I was talking to a parent this morning, year 3 is when they start cursive writing, which means joined up writing. Okay? Year 1, year 2, it tells you what they need to be able to do in each subject for each year group. So this is what we're assessing. We're checking that they're doing what they should be doing for their age. So we're looking at academic standards. So for example, I can describe the process of pollination. That's a curriculum standard. So we know that's what the children need to learn. And then we plan how we're going to help them learn. And with something like this, it will be taking them out to the garden and showing them the plants and getting them to have a look at the stigma and the stamen, maybe, about how plants are pollinated. So it will be based on hands-on learning, not from let's open the textbook and read what it says. So we also need to look at, for example, how seeds are dispersed. So these are curriculum standards. This is what we will assess the children on. And when we do that, we as teachers go onto learning ladders. And for each of those assessment or curriculum standards, we decide for every child in the class, when we've finished that unit of work, we decide if the children are still beginning to understand that curriculum standard, whether they're developing and getting there, whether they're secure in their understanding of that curriculum standard, or whether they're working at greater depth, which means they're working at a much higher level, they're using learning, higher order thinking skills, critical thinking, problem solving, they're working at a higher level. And for each child, for each curriculum standard, we assess them using this. These are all uploaded onto learning ladders. Then as parents, when you go on learning ladders, it will tell you which goal we're working on, curriculum standard. So it will say, for example, in year 4, we're working on this one, and then it will say for each child, when you go on, whether or not they've met that curriculum standard, which means they're working at a secure level and have had 3 ticks. It'll tell you, tick, your child's there. you don't need to worry about this. They're secure in this curriculum standard. Or it will have an hourglass that looks like, the timers, where you're measuring the time to boil an egg. It will have one of them, and it means your child is still working on that curriculum standard. And it could be because we've just started it, or it could be that even when we finished it, they still weren't quite secure. So for each curriculum standard, in each year group, for each child in each class, we're doing this every day. So you've got to understand this is a huge job that we're doing. But believe me, we know your children really, really well because of it. We know what they can do, what they still can't do, what they're brilliant at, for everything that we teach them in the school. We then send you at the end of the term a report based on what they've learned, but also top right-hand corner of every report for each subject, it tells you whether your child is on track. They're meeting curriculum standards and are secure in them for their age group. It doesn't compare them to other children. It just says they're on track. You don't need to worry. Everything they should be learning, they are learning and secure with it. And it will tell you the progress they've made since the beginning of the year. Okay? So for each of them, it's just talking about your child. Are they on track where they should be for their age? And how much progress have they made this year since the beginning of the year? So both of those things are recorded on the report. So this is really important for you to understand where they come from. They come from a summary of everything that we've put into learning ladders. So if your child has had 3 ticks for everything they've done, they're going to get on track at the end of the term. So just so that you know, the word attainment we use all the time in the school. Attainment just means, where are they at a point in time? So, for example, if you scored 9 out of 10 in a mental maths test, that's your attainment in that test. Okay? It doesn't tell you anything else apart from what you got in a test, or where you are at a moment in time. Attainment in this school is measured using this terminology. On track is where everybody should be, because it means they're secure in the learning that they're doing. They can be above, which means they're working at greater depth a lot of the time. Below, which means they're not really yet secure in some of the curriculum standards. And we also have significantly below, and that tends to be for students who are working 1 or 2 years behind where they should be. If a child is significantly below, as a parent you will know, we'll have reached out to you, and we'll have spoken to you about it when you did the admission test at the beginning, and we'll have asked you, we need some help because the child is significantly below where they should be for their age in some subjects. So this is the terminology that we use. And progress is from where a child started to where they finished. How much progress did they make? So it's the actual journey between 2 different points of attainment. Beginning of the year, end of the year, progress is how much improvement they've made over those 2 points. Progress, in the terminology we use, is expected. If a child from their starting point gets to a place we expect them to be by the end of the year, that's called expected progress. That's what we're all looking for. However, you can make it above expected progress. And obviously, for students who are below at the beginning of the year, we need them to make above expected progress to get where they need to be by the end of that year. They can make below expected progress which means something stopping them from actually making the progress they need to make. And finally, if they're making well below expected progress, again, you will know about it as parents. We'll have contacted you and we'll be working with you to try and get the children to make better progress. But that's the terminology, and this is how we assess. So with all that in place, we need to work with you and with the children to set targets based on where they need to be by the end of the year, so that they know where they are and they know where we're challenging them to get to by the end of the year. To actually be able to do that and set targets, we need to know where they were when they first started at the beginning of this year, so that we can decide what their target needs to be for the end of the year so they make good progress. We need to also look at making sure we equate our language to numbers so that we can analyse and see how well the children are progressing. So we actually put numbers to each of the different attainment measures. This also relates to our GCSEs and where a average child, should get to by the end of their GCSEs. So for example, if you look at on track minus, the number as a 4, that is a pass at IGCSE. So no longer do they give you A star, A, B, C, D, they give you a number at GCSE. So if you are on track minus, which is just below on track, that's the equivalent to a 4 and it's a pass at GCSE. A 5 is a good pass at IGCSE, so you're secure in everything. So the numbers relate to the language that we're using within the school. So the further up the school, the children are going to start using the numbers more than the letters. But it's to show how they relate to each other. At the beginning of the year, if a child starts on track, everything's good, they're where they should be in maths, at the beginning of the year, we will give them a baseline, the first judgment of on track minus, because they haven't done the year yet. So we're going to say they're on track, they haven't started yet, so we'll give them on track minus. So all the baselines are in red. All the baselines for all children in all subjects would either be SB, significantly below minus, because they haven't started the year, on track minus, or above minus. So we have baselined all your children for all your subjects when they first started at the beginning of this year, and they've all been given one of these baselines for every subject. Then we need to give them challenging targets for the end of the year. So if a child has started on track, which is equivalent to a 4, then by the end of the year, we want them to get to a 6. So we're asking children, if they started on track, to jump 2 sub-levels from a 4 to a 6. If a child starts above, and their baseline was A minus, again, we want them to get to an A plus, which is top of the scoring, which is a 9. And again, 2 sub-levels we're expecting them to make. So we're actually saying to them, this is where you started, and this is where we want you to be, which are 2 jumps. However, and I know you'll understand the logic behind this, if a child starts below at the beginning of the year, we need to try and get them to as close to on track by the end of the year as we can. So if they start below, we need them to make 3 jumps in the year. And if they start significantly below, again we need them to make 3 jumps, because they've got to try and catch up. So this is the targets that we're setting the children. And if you look at the back of their notebooks, you will see their targets written for each subject. And this is why I wanted to have this workshop with you today, so that you can understand what these mean in the back of the notebooks. For each of these baselines, this will be the given targets for the students. So if they started on track minus, we need them to be on track plus by the end of the year, which is from a 4 to a 6, 2 sub-levels jump. So every time we're assessing them, we're thinking about how to push them so that they make this kind of progress in the year. I know I've given you a lot of information. I can see you all smiling. Some of you are nodding, some of you are going, this is too much for me to take. I understand, which is why it's a good job that we're videoing this today. We'll send you the link over the weekend, you can watch it again. But if you have any questions at all, every member of the school has been trained on this, all the teachers know. So if you've got any questions about any of the baselines, or the targets, please speak to the teacher involved. But for the rest of this afternoon, you've got me, Miss Rima, Mr. Daff. We're all here if you have any questions about target setting, why we do what we do, why we mark the way we do, why we teach the way we do, is all for this. Everything fits together, and we work really, really hard in making sure not only do the children have a wonderful time at school, but they make really good progress in their learning. Thank you very much for coming. Like I said, we'll stop the taping, and then if there's anybody that asks questions, you can come and ask any one of the 3 of us anything you need to know. But also, tea, coffee, biscuits, please help yourself, and a huge thank you for everybody coming out this afternoon on your weekend. It is appreciated. Thank you so much for your time, everybody.